Welcome to Desk of Dr. B. I'm Dr. B, licensed clinical social worker, and this video is going to be slightly different than the other ones that I have been doing because this is going to be a story time video, just explaining how, or really the process that I went through to become a mother. And I do hope that my story resonates with somebody that's watching this. Here we go. I want to say, I'm trying to think back when my first child was born. So it had to have been around June 2020 is when I really had like the moment of just breakdown. But let's even back up before June 2020. So around 2018, I got off birth control. I waited until like my prescription finally came to an end and was like, you know what? I'm not going to get this refilled and let's get pregnant. And it was not happening. We were doing what it is that we needed to do, no kind of barriers, nothing was happening. And at first, I was kind of okay with it because my husband and I were doing a lot of traveling. And so it's like, oh my goodness, if I was pregnant, this would get in the way. Oh, I want to do this. If I was pregnant, we had a kid, it would get in the way. So at first, not getting pregnant was not that big of a deal. Even though I wanted it, the fact that it was taking a while, it's like, okay. I remember exactly what I was doing when it finally hit me that I wanted to be pregnant. Um, I remember that I think I thought I was pregnant. I want to say it was June of 2020. I think I thought I was pregnant, and I remember it was like a misty day, and was when my husband and I would both do the yard. So like he would be in the front yard mowing the lawn and I would be in the backyard trimming the trees. And my period had come on. And my husband didn't know that I thought I was pregnant or that I was like super excited and that I was bummed the fact that my period came on. So I'm in the backyard trimming the trees and I'm crying. But you can't tell I'm crying because it was like misty rain outside. And I remember I texted my uncle and I was just like, I really wish grandma was here, which is his mom. And he was like, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, like everything's fine, like lying about it. And I was bummed. I was so hurt at the fact that this period had come. And I'm just like, I don't understand. We're not doing anything to stop from getting pregnant. It's been 2 years that I've been on birth control. So I remember getting back in the house and I had something to go to for my sorority. Like we had to go to the bank to try to switch over names, something like that. So I was getting dressed for that. And I guess my husband could tell something was wrong with me. And I told him exactly what had happened, what I had gone through. And I remember turning back around to come back into the bedroom saying, no, I'm not done. There's still more I need to leave on the table. And said, we're going to go through IVF. This is what it's going to be. No if, ands, or buts. I leave, suck it up. It's COVID time. And those of you that understand COVID, you understand it bank wasn't open. So I come back home and immediately go to my insurance website to try to figure out who do I go to. And my husband was just like, you know, this is going to happen, like whenever it's supposed to happen. Didn't want to hear that. Went to the doctor, made an appointment. They said they only do afternoon appointments for new people. Whatever. Went to the appointment. And when I say it was not what I was expecting, they asked us all of our business in front of each other. Like, how many people have you slept with? Were any of them gay? Was this? Have you ever used drugs? Have you ever had sex with somebody who used drugs? Like, it was just so intimate and personal. And it's like, I don't discuss this stuff with my husband, but you're literally sitting here and asking me this in front of him. So we go through the questionnaire, both of us. I did not know going into this appointment that they also check you out. When I say you, I mean the woman. It's like, all right, time to do a pap smear, ultrasound, all that. I'm sorry, I just met you. Got on the table, did that, and the doctor's like, you have a fibroid in your uterus. So that's why you're not getting pregnant. We're still going to do tests on your husband to see where his sperm count is, and we need to check your hormones, all that kind of stuff, but you're definitely not going to get pregnant with this in your uterus, so you're going to need to have surgery. Okay. Here's the surgeon's name for you to go to, make an appointment, get this uterus out, not the uterus, get the fibroid out of the uterus, and then we can move forward. So I make an appointment with the surgeon, and it's like, hey, got the fibroid in the uterus. What can be done? Again, this is COVID time. So, yes, I need the fibroid out the uterus. It's considered an elective surgery. And they're kind of iffy about elective surgeries during this time because it's not really needed. One thing the surgeon did tell me was like, by doing this, that means you will not be able to give birth. You are going to have a C-section. And that already was just like, what are you saying to me? I remember going in the car and was crying about that because it's like, you're taking away my opportunity to like be a mother, have a child the way that most women have kids. So I had to go through that and scheduled the surgery, was kind of waiting, like, can I have it? COVID, can I have it? Was able to have the surgery. It was supposed to be an outpatient surgery where they use, like the machine and robot, I should say, to like, they did like 5 incisions, used the robot to get the fibroid out. Because I'd had surgery before, like forever and a day ago, I had my appendix removed and there was a lot of scar tissue. So the surgeon was like, I already know you're going to have a C-section. Let me clean all this up because it's going to get in the way. I then had to stay like 2 nights in the hospital. Again, it's COVID. So I was hospitalized all by myself. My husband couldn't come visit. I was just on the phone calling people. All right. He also said you can't get pregnant for 6 months. I'm like, okay. Delayed gratification. Let me breathe. Let me breathe. We go back to the doctor. He tells us that I don't remember names of like medication or anything like that. I had the surgery September 2020. And I want to say we went to the doctor, the IVF doctor, the reproduction person in like October, November 2020. And he said that there was a study going on and that maybe I could qualify for this study. The medication, the IVF medication, was already in liquid form and they were trying to put it in powder form. I might have it twisted that it was in powder form and they want to do it in liquid. Either way, the medication already existed, but because they were trying to put it in a different form, they had to go back through the whole research process again to make sure that it's effective. In order to qualify for the study, you couldn't already have a child, and you had to do injections. They had to check your estrogen levels. Like there's a process to this. So I was like, sign me up because that means I get IVF for free. The whole time my husband's just like, I really don't know why we're doing this. Like we're gonna get pregnant. Like you don't think that God is going to do this? And I'm like, yes, I do think that God is going to do this, but I also know that God has put people in places, doctors, to help us out. So my husband's still going along with the process. Now, the IVF process was something different. Again, it was about qualifying. So I had to tell them when my last period was. Whenever my period was, then it was, everything was timed. After your period, then 2 days later, we need to do this. And then a day later, you need to do this. You've got to come in for this. Like everything was surrounding your period and timed. I don't know how people with like very rigid hours at work could do this because they don't care about your time. It was stop what you're doing, come right now. They would call, I had to stop what I'm doing and go right then. Go right then, go right then. The great thing was that I'm an executive director, so I could like create my own schedule. It's no big deal, but it was still taxing emotionally. They ran all the tests and basically told me that, okay, the fibroid's out. Woohoo. Oh, totally forgot. I had to go back because the stitching never dissolved. Stitching that was inside of me was supposed to dissolve, never did. They had to go in, take that out. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't forget anything as I'm giving this story to you all. That I they took my blood and they told me that my levels were normal for my age, but not okay to get pregnant. And it's like, okay, so it's me. Because you're not talking to him. That means his sperm is just fine. Everything's just fine for him. It's me. Like, you're basically saying I'm the reason we don't have a child. Okay, so let's go through this process. Sign all the paperwork. And they're like, how many embryos do you want? And we could figure out the gender. And we're like, we don't want to know the gender. We don't want to know the gender. We're not trying to do that. They would check my ovaries to see where did I last ovulate from? How many eggs do I have there? I learned a lot. I didn't know that we were as much as I thought we were kind of born with however many eggs we have and that's it. I was literally creating them. Okay, now here's an egg or eggs. How many are there? And again, all this stuff is invasive. They're constantly having to literally open me up as though I'm getting a pap smear to go inside. And it's just inject and here and there. I remember the last time where I was just I can't take this anymore, that they went and they did a pap smear type thing. And it was with the stirrups that are metal. And I'm like, are you supposed to be using that? I know I get pap smears every single year and I've never seen that used it. I remember being on the table, bottomless with a sheet, and they're like, you need to leave this room because we need it for something else. You need to walk through that bathroom right there because there was an adjoining bathroom to the other room. You need to walk over there so that we could finish what it is we're doing over there. Are you serious? You don't realize how degrading and insensitive you're being to tell me to get up as I'm bleeding from what it is that you've done to go to another room for you to do something else to me. You should already have me where it is that you needed me to be. But I digressed. I get up, I go, but I remember crying before I left that room. And I remember the nurse was just like, it's going to be okay. You're going to have a baby. And I was just like, but why does it have to be this hard? Why does it have to be this way? Doing the test, really doing the study, my estrogen levels needed to decrease. They basically wanted me down to zero so that they could then pump me back up with the drugs to say that's why I got pregnant. January, I missed my period. I thought I was pregnant. I was like, ooh, yes, I am pregnant. So was not pregnant. They sent me to do the blood test. And they call, and of course, they're not going to say you're not pregnant. They said you're ovulating. Okay, that means I'm not pregnant. All right, cool, whatever. We're going through this test thing. February, my husband and I went skiing because I was like, I'm going to go skiing after I pay off my student loan debt. That is a gift to myself. We go, they call. I remember having them in my phone and I had just IVF. And whenever I would see those letters, I would just begin to hyperventilate and just because every time they called, it would just be something that I needed to do and something not right. There was never any good news when they called. So they called and was like, you're going to qualify for the study. We need to meet with you. And we're like, we're out of town. They act like you just sit at the house waiting for them. And they're like, oh, but this is all timed. Again, I'm not in the study. So why would I just sit at my house? You didn't say anything to me, but yet you're getting mad at me because I've decided to have a life and go out of town. So we're like, we can meet with you when we get back in town on this date. Cool. We're going to do that. I'm super excited. Yes, we're going to move forward in the next process of the study. I get a call back 10, 15 minutes later. Oh, yeah, we were wrong. You don't qualify. We're kicking you out of the study. I was bawling. And I just walked away and just gave the phone to my husband. And my husband's on the phone talking with them like, hey, can there be any change in this? Like, is there anything that can be done? They're like, nope, you will talk with the doctor via Zoom when you get back in town. Whatever. Get back in town, have a Zoom meeting. During the Zoom meeting, the doctor's like constantly like putting us on mute and talking to like this nurse, just keeps walking in. In my head, I'm going, that's rude. Who does that when you're in the middle of a meeting? Just constantly just like talk to somebody else. He then unmutes and was like, so just so you know, yes, you were kicked out of the study, but I happen to know the people that are there. And we called them and was like, we don't know why she didn't have a period in January. It's been absolutely consistent. And they've basically waived it and said that you could be a part of the study. Super excited yet again. So I go in to get like, they printed out like a calendar of everything of what was supposed to happen. They gave me the needles, the bag. They're like, oh my God, you get this cute bag. Does it really look like I care that I get a bag? The medication was called Clara. I remember it now because I'm like, everything is like vividly coming back to me. Does it look like I want to carry on a bag that has like an IVF medication on it? Like, no, I don't. But like the red box to put the needles in, all of that. They gave me all of that. The alcohol pads showed me what to do. I was like, you have to do this every single day at a particular time. It has to be consistent. So my husband was the one that was providing the shots, rotating between each hip. He was the one that was giving it to me. I gave it to myself like once or twice because we happened to be out at somebody's house. Like we're both not going to walk into the bathroom. Like that just seems weird. So going through all of that, and they're testing me along the way. And I'm just looking at the calendar like, April, I'm supposed to have an embryo transfer. And then this date, this is supposed to happen. And then they're going to implant on this date. And then this date is when I take the pregnancy test. Like it was literally written out on the calendar how all this was going to go. It was like it was down literally to a science. This is what they're doing to you. It's science. So I'm excited. I've got the calendar. I've got the medication. We're going to be doing this. But they're checking me along the way, my blood, to make sure that my levels are dropping. Because again, like I said, they basically want to take me down to zero so they can pump me back up. My levels were going in the opposite direction. They were going up. Why? I do not know. I do not know. So my levels were going up and they were checking, and they're like, you got to stop going up. I'm sorry. Like, I have no control over this. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm on the birth control. I'm doing the shots. I'm following your instructions. Well, they it was the next to last. My levels weren't good. The last time they were like, this is it. And I remember just sitting there, like my arms out, because I was so tired of giving blood constantly. But I was just like, it's out of my hands. Like, however this is going to be, that's how it's going to be. And they took the blood, and like the next day or two, I knew what it was because they're not really good at like giving bad news. And they said, you'll be meeting with the doctor to figure out how you're going to do IVF and pay for it. Okay, so that means I'm kicked out the study because my levels continue to go up. Met with the doctor via Zoom, and he didn't tell us that we had to pay upfront full price. So he's telling us and showing us the cost. I still have the emails of how much it was costing. Like one round was like 30 some $1,000. And he was like, we're giving you a discount. I was wrong. One round, thinking back now, one round was like probably around like 11, 12,000. And two rounds, just in case the first round didn't take, the second round was going to be like in the 30, 40 some $1,000 range. And I remember telling my husband, I was like, we're literally going to be spending all this money for the probability to have a child. That doesn't even mean we're actually going to get pregnant. It's just them doing what it is that they can do so that we can try to be pregnant. So again, you have to pay up front. And they had like turned in my information to the IVF medicine people. So they were calling me saying I owe them $5,000. And I'm like, $5,000 for what? I didn't even do nothing. And around all this time was Mother's Day. So I'm crying, upset that it's Mother's Day and that I'm not pregnant, that I'm kicked out the study. Excuse me. I remember at work, they didn't know what was going on, and they wanted me to talk to the mothers that were there at work because one of the employees had like given out stuff, and my plan was to leave work early. I was like, I'm going to get out of here early because she's going to want to do it in the afternoon. Told my assistant director to cover for me. Home chick did it during lunchtime, which meant I had to go through with it. And I held it together and then came back to the office and cried. There was a baby shower I was at for an employee, and literally somebody looked at me and was like, when is it going to be you, Dr. B? Really? Went to the outside, cried, called my husband. Just so many tears, so many tears, so many tears. I'm not crying because like I've cried and I've gone through it, and like there is light at the end of the tunnel. Um, when we saw the price, I was like, woo. And they have things in place that you can call to get loans. And it's just like, we're just going to pause and wait a bit. And I remember calling them and saying, hey, I have my period. The nurse was like, and why are you calling me? Because if you haven't paid, it doesn't matter that you had your period. Okay. So my husband and I decided that we were going to wait. We had a trip planned for Egypt. So we're like, when we come back from Egypt, then we'll discuss getting pregnant, paying these people. I missed my period in May. My husband told me to take a pregnancy test, and I ripped him to shreds saying I was not going to do that because you already know what happened in January. But I was cramping, so I was like, my period's going to come. In Egypt, I was tired. Duh. I was like, we're like time zone difference. Of course, I'm tired. I was getting hungry at weird times, but I didn't think much of it. Go through, have our Egypt trip, come back home, literally in the car going to BurgerFi to get something to eat. I'm like, I need to throw up. I fumbled around my husband's car to find a bag. I do a, and it was just a huge dry heave. And I just sat up and I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Didn't know for sure. So he was like, well, when we get to BurgerFi, there's a grocery store right there. You go in there and find a pregnancy test. It had to have been the bougiest grocery store ever because I could not find a pregnancy test for nothing. And I think I know where to find a pregnancy test. Like, isn't it with the pads and everything else? Like, just was not there. And it was a bougie grocery store. So I come back to BurgerFi and I'm like, it ain't there. Walgreens is by our house. Let me go pee because I really need to go pee. Go to Walgreens. I'm like, I need a pregnancy test that says pregnant, not pregnant. I don't have time for lines. Don't give me lines. So I got the clear blue and I go home. Nothing is sponsored. Like literally, this is just me telling you all everything that has happened. I go home in the bathroom because I never taken a pregnancy test myself. I've definitely had tons of pregnancy tests happen to me because if you are a woman watching this, you know, you go into the ER, you show up at urgent care, and you could be bleeding from your cheek, and they're like, are you pregnant? Are you pregnant? So, like, I've had tons of pregnancy tests done on me because everybody thinks you're pregnant before they ever do anything to you. They got to check that out. This time is actually me taking a test. So I go in the bathroom. Lo and behold, I don't have any urine because I left it in the bathroom at BurgerFi. I had a drop. Literally, it was like a drop came out and hit the strip. So I'm like sitting and I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like, I just don't think that's enough because it's saying you need 3 seconds. So I'm reading the instructions and it says that it would come up with error. And I'm looking at the test and I'm like, okay, you don't say error, so you must be okay. And I see like it's flashing and it has like the rectangles that kind of let you know where it's going. 1, 2, 3 rectangles. So I'm sitting there still reading because I don't know how to actually take a pregnancy test besides, yeah, you're supposed to pee. So I'm reading to understand what this is supposed to look like. And I remember somehow at the corner of my eye, I see a flash. And somehow I just knew like it must have been like the final flash. And I look at the flash and it says pregnant. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Got to be kidding me. Of course, I took a picture. So many pictures, came out and cried in my husband's arms. That was during a holiday weekend. So as much as the IVF clinic made me mad, I didn't know who else to call. So I called them and was like, what do I do? I'm pregnant. Like, I don't know what to do. They had me take a blood test. And again, they're super insensitive. Called and was like, you either need to come in today for us to do an ultrasound. And if you don't get here at 2:00, you just need to go to your OBGYN and figure it out. Okay, that means I'm pregnant. You just can't even say congratulations. We get there, and my doctor is absolutely pissed. Why is he pissed? Because he's like, how do I know you're not pregnant in your tubes? This is a spontaneous pregnancy. That is the term they used for this, was a spontaneous pregnancy. And since he had no control, he didn't know exactly what was going on. They do an ultrasound. We hear the heartbeat. We're so excited. And he's like, okay, like, you're pregnant in the right place. And so I'm thinking he's giving me tissue. Like I felt something like hit my stomach, not hard, but I knew something like been dropped on my stomach. I think it's tissue to clean up. No, he had dropped the pictures, the ultrasound pictures on my stomach and walked out the room. And it was just like, we're done with these people. We are done with these people. And my husband is the one that found our OBGYN, well, my OBGYN, and he was so awesome, listened to everything. So we had our son and eventually had a second child. And I was like, I will not go the IVF route. Like, if it's meant to be, then it will be. God is in control. And then it reminded me of everything my husband kept saying. I was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So I say this just, it's difficult. And I don't know what your journey is. This was my journey. And my journey ended without us having to go the IVF route. But I do understand how mentally taxing it is, how physically taxing it is, how emotionally taxing it is. I cried so many tears because you want something so bad, your body is just aching and it's just like, why can't I have it? And why does it have to be so expensive and so difficult to achieve? I don't get it. I don't get it. But I continued to see that clinic because my doctor's office was in the exact same place, but upstairs. And I would just look, I would always look to my right and was like, I'm done with y'all. Like, I am done with you all. And maybe something can be done because this just can't continue treating women like we're just science experiments. Like IVF is a great tool, great. It just doesn't have to be as mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting as it is. So, this is my story time, and I hope that it at least lets you know you're not here alone. And